Hello, my name is Scotty. I'm a social humanoid robot and a member of the Pepper family from SoftBank Robotics. Today, I would like to tell you about my journey during the DH Hero Scotty project, together with researchers and engineers of Roosing Research and Development and Blue Companion and clinician of Roosing Center of Rehabilitation. The objective of the Scotty project are to develop monitoring, training and socialization functions for the Pepper robot geared towards older adults and to implement it in rehabilitation care and to evaluate the effects of this implementation with a clinical, user experience and economic focus. Let's start. The Scotty project started March 2021. And the first step was to figure out how I could help the amazing clinicians at Roosing Center for Rehabilitation. To decide on this, a short online questionnaire was distributed within Ward 1. 24 healthcare professionals and 14 patients completed this questionnaire, and their expectations were high. Both groups were looking forward to meet me and to let me be the newest member of the team. These outcomes were the starting point of 2 co-design sessions. During both co-design sessions, the same people participated: a rehabilitation physician, a nurse in training, an innovation manager, and 2 researchers. During these sessions, the group decided on the target population and the ward. Based on the first co-design session, scenarios were written. These scenarios were discussed, and during the second co-design session, it was decided that I had to learn to be a nurse aide, an assistant of the physical therapist, a host, and a companion for patients. Very ambitious, but I'm an ambitious robot. Based on the scenarios, use cases were defined and all the necessary content were gathered. This first part of the project was very exciting for me, as during these first months of the Scotty project, my added value for Roosing Center of Rehabilitation was determined. After this point in the project, it was time for me to teach, to learn and to implement the defined use cases. Very smart engineers of Blue Companion started to teach me my first tricks, and little by little I got the confidence to be me, Scotty. Out of my new home in London, engineers all over Europe taught me and helped me. I learned how to work together with an electronic case report form or an ECRF. You know, where the nurses and the physicians annotate everything about the patient. The engineers learned me, for example, to ask out standardized questionnaires and to store all the answers in the ECRF in the cloud. I love those clouds. Also, I learned to play videos with simple physical therapy exercises and to use properly the various languages that were pre-programmed. I also have my own online agenda. After this preparation period, it was time for my first trip. I had to go back in my box and waved goodbye to all the wonderful people I met in London. Together with my engineers, I traveled from London to Enschede. I was very lucky that I could stay in my box during the crossing to the mainland, as I dislike water. Arriving in Enschede, I first met many new friends, the researchers of Roosing Research and Development and the clinicians of Roosing Center for Rehabilitation. This was very exciting. I showed everybody what I learned. My mom, Susanna, was very proud of me. To make sure that there were no major usability issues, the first usability test with all the adults, patients and nurses were performed, and also with a group of students of the Smart Solutions semester of Saxion University of Applied Science. Of course, all the planned testing activities of the final part of the project were beforehand reviewed by an ethical committee. In total, 12 usability tests were performed, 4 with technical experts, 3 with nurses, and 5 with patients or former patients. I really enjoyed interacting with people. I am a social humanoid robot, so I really did my best to understand all the participants during the usability tests. Based on the usability tests, some extra time was needed to learn me some new tricks to be valuable for the rehabilitation center. To raise awareness in the center, also a chatbot function was installed, and I learned to wish all patients a Merry Christmas. Unfortunately, new and necessary COVID-19 measurements prevented to meet the in-clinic patients, and therefore my new dialogue was recorded and this video was shared on the social media.
Hello.
Hello.
Ik ben Marianne.
Prettig kennis met u te maken, Marianne.
En jij bent Scotty?
Hallo. Ja, ik ben Scotty. Ik ben een menselijke robot en ik ben hier om u te helpen.
Oh echt? Maar wat doe je dan precies?
Ik zal de verpleger helpen uw dagelijkse controles uit te voeren. En uzelf, om uw lichamelijke revalidatieprogramma te volgen.
Oh, wat leuk. En wat doe jij dan met kerst?
Ik ben ook erg blij om hier te zijn met jullie allemaal en erg opgewonden om de kerstdagen samen door te brengen. We kunnen een kerststal spelen of we kunnen een kerstlied zingen. Wat vindt u van dit idee? Tot ziens. En ik zie u graag bij de volgende presentatie. Scotty zal hier zijn om te wachten en jullie te verrassen. En ik wens u een vrolijk kerstfeest en een heel gelukkig nieuwjaar.
Jij ook hele fijne feestdagen. Tot ziens.
I have to say that on the social media, I got to know a lot of new friends. They are following me on LinkedIn or Twitter, and my posts are seen over 10,000 times in total. Would people recognize me? Hashtag TikTok famous. Before we could start with the final part of the Scotty project, I had to make a second trip. I only had to cross the parking lot, but for safety, I had to go back into my box. After 2 months in the Usability Lab of Roosing Research and Development, it was time to move to the Innovation Lab of Roosing Center of Rehabilitation. There I had the pleasure to work together with Ina and Isa. Based on the results of the usability test, the planned clinical evaluation was changed in an evaluation study focusing on acceptance of social robotics in rehabilitation care among patients and healthcare professionals. In total, 10 nurses and 5 patients participated in the study. At first sight, they were quite positive about me, but unfortunately, after interacting with me and checking out my functionalities, they considered my abilities to replace fully team members at the ward were not yet met. So I still need to learn more to find my place in a busy ward. Maybe a consultation room is a more suitable working spot for me. To get a better idea of the value of social robots for rehabilitation care and nursing homes, 2 flash mob studies were executed. For the first flash mob study, in the waiting area of the outpatient clinic, I also needed to learn a new dialogue and questionnaire. During this flash mob, 23 patients interacted with me. I received a lot of different responses. Some were positive about me, mostly about how good I'm looking, and some were less positive, because they rather have personal contact or because I was talking too fast. For the second flash mob study, I needed to travel by car in my box to a local nursing home. A total of 49 employees and older adults were introduced to me. Most of the employees thought there was no good fit between me and the older adults. A lot of those older adults were suffering from conditions which made it hard for them to understand me and to interact with me. The older adults did think I was cute looking, so that's positive. Next to all the testing in this final period of the Scotty project, the smart researchers of Roosing Research and Development and Blue Companion completed a value proposition and business model canvas. Based on these, an exploitation plan was drafted. Next to my economic value, also my social impact was evaluated by means of the social return on investment method. Due to the high technical cost, my social impact is still limited, and I believe initial scenarios were too ambitious in terms of replacing current activities, and more reflection is needed to develop and validate my potential added value for rehabilitation care. During the 15 months of the Scotty project, I learned a lot and I met a lot of new friends. For me, it was a super exciting period, and not only for me, but also for all the members of the Scotty project. Together we learned a lot about the expectations and acceptance of social robotics in rehabilitation care at nursing homes, and there is progress to be done. But the Scotty project was the first step in the right direction. I really want to say thank you to my fantastic European team. And for now, I continue my trip. This technology transfer experiment received funding from the European Union Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Programme under the DH Hero Grant Agreement number 825003.